Good morning, folks. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and we're going back to that horrible world today known as the JRC. But before we do, folks, the usual disclaimers. Now, applaud for me. I merely glanced at my TL this morning because, of course, I had to record one of the preloaded videos for yesterday for today. But I didn't go reading, which means I didn't read something stupid. And let's face it, Twitter these days has just become a cesspool of stupid. And even worse, aggressive stupid. There's nothing worse on this planet than aggressive stupid. And you get a lot of it from Dr. Matthew Israel. So let's get to the disclaimers, shall we? Yay! Let's do it. In the description box, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It is written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's quote-unquote behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much they have threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill, folks. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. We also have linked in there NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding, folks, in case the JRC actually has the balls to see through with their threat. We also got the linked in there. Blah, blah. Blah. I can't brain. Okay. We also have the link in regards to the Agape boarding school / Stone for Kelp situation. And this is a school, folks, based out of Stockton, Missouri, that takes in it's Christian themed, that takes in so-called troubled male teens, that has pending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all of which have been substantiated by the hard evidence obtained during the investigation done by the Missouri Department of Social Services and include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor, still on the premises with full access to the boys in spite of name change, I might add, upon multiple, again, substantiated. Hear this word substantiated, because I don't think Stone for Help seems to fucking get it. Claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. We have a brand new spanking attorney general out in this state who has still done nothing to address anything in regards to Agape / Stone for Help, has said nothing, has updated no survivors. At this point, nobody knows what the hell is going on. Okay? You just know that. So please, folks, read that article by Ozark first, and please share it on all your social media. We got of course, other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign as well, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masimba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. When we discuss the JRC, folks, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of peoples with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please go ahead and use your headphones. This channel is marked not for children for a reason. We use profanity and we speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger, parental supervision is very highly advised. Trigger warning. We are about to descend into the mad ravings of the lunatic mind known as Dr. Matthew Israel. You're going to hear gaslighting, victim blaming, contradictions, lies, pseudoscience, enough ableism and bigotry to circle the globe a few thousand times, torture and abuse of Autistica. So just be ready for the stupid, all right? Now, before we get into this video, I just want to mention something. And I hope nobody takes it the wrong way. During my lives on open chat, they are there for us to not have to wear our masks and let out some steam, right? Particularly those of us on the channel because we are disabled and we are neurodiverse. But I just wanted to address something because I really didn't know how else to be able to address it. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm just going to simply say this. Yes, some of us have weapons. I myself have a collection of swords which I have shared during at least a couple of my lives. That being said, many of the individuals that join on with open chat are people with disabilities who've been horrifically abused. So, sometimes showing those weapons can trigger these individuals. It can also end up with getting yourselves in trouble, and I don't want that. So, for next Monday, when doing the lives, if you could do me a favor, and maybe, unless it's like something like show and tell, not be flashing the weapons so often. This would be highly appreciated. I don't want to trigger anybody. I don't want to make anyone angry, but I did want to address it because it's been brought to my attention. And I wanted to try to do it in a way that was nice as possible. I don't want you guys getting yourselves in any kind of trouble. I also don't want those in my audience who are abuse survivors to be triggered in any way. If you just want to show it as something newly acquired and then immediately put it away, that is fine. As far as continuing to show them or mentioning in the frustration of living in this very fucked up ableist world of ours how you would like to use them can trigger others. So please, folks, let's use our heads. Let's be practical about this. And let's just not do it so much, okay? Let's not be those people. Okay? All right. I hope nobody got mad or offended by what I just said. It's just something that has been needed to be addressed for a while, and I've let it go due to stressful things going on in my own life and not wanting to draw up any sort of conflict. I'm going through a whole bunch of shit right now, but it does need to be addressed. When you are on live stream, whether on my panel or somebody else's, please think about the other individuals in the audience. Okay? All right, now moving on. And remember, prepare yourselves for the stupid, okay? Okay. Before I get into it, yes, I'm not going to be showing my swords anymore. Granted, it may have been shown in a different context, but I'm not going to be a hypocrite. All right? Be good? Okay. All right, we have basically another run-on sentence from hell because Dr. Matthew Israel, with all his egotism, can't seem to figure out how to write things properly in an easily read manner. So let's get started, shall we? We'll probably break this up into 2 videos. A non-disabled individual seeking to control or eliminate problematic or dangerous behaviors possesses the right to seek out or consent to treatment of any type. Okay, doctor, I'm going to call you bullshit. You want to know why? You cannot say that when not a single student has consented. You cannot use this argument when the individuals that you are speaking of are minors and do not have any ability to consent to any of this, period. Okay? Please stop. None of these kids signed up for this. Okay? They did not give away their consent to be tortured and abused and starved. Okay? And let's also bring up to this thing here, the non-disabled. Since you want to bring neurotypical kids into this, doctor, let's go ahead and do so, shall we? A neurotypical kid who goes to your regular public schools may have problematic behaviors, but these individuals know that they are safe while in school from any form of corporal punishment. They do not have to fear, getting paddled like they did back in the day, or spanked, or any other kind of physical repercussions for their behavior. You are hardly going to take a problematic neurotypical kid and slam him into your school, doctor, and have them sign up for this. This is a nonsensical argument. I know for a fact, doctor, that not a single kid in your school is what we would consider a neurotypical. Okay? Because if you did, then maybe that might finally get the media's fucking attention. Please stop with the bullshit. Oh, but he goes on. For example, an individual who's addicted to cigarette smoking and subject to its dangerous side effects may seek out aversive therapy as a means of cessation. I'm going to stop you right there, doctor. No, they don't. I'm going to allude to the fact that my stepfather and my mom were smokers for years. Okay? Years. It is very implanted into my childhood. They were very addicted to their nicotine. Do you think that they signed themselves up to go onto the SIBIS? No. Okay? They went and consulted their doctors. And with the assistance with, I know, the horror doctor, the horror medication, they have been now former smokers for going on 20 years. Most folks who stop smoking do so at the advice of their doctor, using doctor's advice to use such things as maybe nicotine patches or other forms of medication to assist them in doing so. You may find the odd few who may sign up for the shock treatment. But before the doctor says, see, no, doctor, let me tell you why this doesn't work, okay? Because the device that you're talking about is not the GED. Let me say that for those idiots in the back who don't seem to understand. The devices these rare individuals used are not the GED. The devices that they're used are nowhere near at the frequency that the GED is. The lowest running GED runs at 15 MPa. That is almost 3 times as powerful as a police taser. The next step is the 45 MPa. Next step is the 85 MPa, right? Which is just below the lethal limit. People who want to stop smoking are not going to sign up to be put on a device that is going to shock them at that level to stop smoking. Okay? I just want to inject a little bit of reality into his meaningless, absolutely bullshit narrative. Okay? But let's move on. Similarly, aversive therapy, specifically the use of contingent electric shock, has long been recognized as a safe and effective method of treating alcoholism. Here we go again. Speaking as an alcoholic, You want to know what I used a doctor to quit? Nothing. Nothing. You hear me, doctor? Nothing. I quit cold turkey almost 3 years ago now. Be 3 years coming up in February. Well, this month, about around the 13th. I did not need nor want a device that is powered to be just below the lethal limit in order to stop drinking. I instead used, in our terms, reasonable accommodation. I accept the reality that I have an addictive personality. And that I knew, after having trying to stop drinking entirely previously 2 times. Hold on, folks. I'll be back. Yes?
Have that for it.
Thank you.
Yep, have a good day.
You too. Deliveries, folks. But as I was saying, having attempted 2 times previously to stop drinking with no success, being the realist that I am, I realized that I have an addictive personality. I am a person who's attuned to get addicted to things fairly easily. So, what was my reasonable accommodation that caused me no pain whatsoever or any trauma in order to quit? This. Hold on. Oh, come on. This. This is kava tea. It is a known stress reducer. I would get my worst with alcoholism when I was incredibly, overwhelmingly stressed. When the sensory issues and the emotional issues and just the stress of day-to-day life, and in particular living in a world that's not built for me, would get to me, I would drink, very heavily so. And it was getting to the point that I was drinking so much, so hard, that it was starting to cause me to shake uncontrollably. Like I couldn't stop it. Okay? I was also starting to hallucinate my past because I have a particular mutant gene called the HH gene. So I switched over to kava, which I have read from others is a very, very strong calming tea. It's in fact used in other countries where people cannot even get access to it without a fucking medical prescription. I switched to that instead. And I haven't looked back since. So why do I bring this up? Well, he decided to bring up alcoholism. I was going to show you in a way how doing something as far as looking at the reality of it, accepting the reality of the situation and the traits that turned me into an alcoholic. And instead of trying to find a means to punish myself for it, and yes, I've seen alcoholics do that. In fact, it actually has the opposite effect of what Dr. Matthew Israel is telling you. Matter of fact, these individuals were more likely to go back into drinking and for it to get worse. No, instead, I accepted what the issues were. And I then did the research, got my tea, and instead of drinking all the time when I was stressed, I drink this all the time. I do mean all the time. I should own stock in Yogi Tea for how much of their kava tea I go through just in a month. But I had no side effects. None. Okay? The shaking stopped. And I was able to finally beat alcoholism. Okay? This is an example, doctor, of how logic, accepting reality, and reasonable accommodations can overcome something. And I mean, when I say I was an aggressive alcoholic, I drank a lot, folks. I drank enough that probably could put an over 250-pound man under the table on a daily basis. Okay? And doctor, no aversive therapy was necessary because logic was used. An acceptance of self and some maybe not so desirable traits of mine were acknowledged. A solution then was made and has successfully worked. I have not touched alcohol in 2 years. Well, 2 in some years. Okay? But let's read further, shall we? Similarly, aversive therapy, specifically the use of it. And by the way, let's consider this. They say safe and effective, but they're again not telling you that what they're talking about is the SIBIS device, which actually runs a lower shock than the 5 MPA that is in your most general issued police tasers. Okay? Much lower levels of shock. The only way you can compare such devices to the GED is that they are both skin shock devices, and that's where the similarities end. You cannot compare a device that runs at maybe 1, 2 MPA to a device that runs 15, 45, 85. It doesn't work. Now let's move on here. If a nicotine addict can utilize aversive therapy to avoid death by cancer, if an alcoholic can avail him or herself of the aversives to evade death due to liver disease, and if other persons can avail themselves of aversive therapy to avoid deaths caused by any of their other dangerous behaviors, so too must any person with behavior disorders, whether otherwise disabled or not, be permitted to take advantage of a full range of treatments, including aversive therapies if necessary, to address his or her own uncontrolled life-threatening behaviors. For fuck's sake, doctor. I just proved why that logic doesn't work. I have proven by my own life, someone who was as aggressively alcoholic as I was taking down over half a bottle of 100 proof rum a night. I was having at least 2, 3 Long Islands on top of that, and at least a couple of beers. And those were on the light days. Okay? Okay, you see where I'm going with, doctor. I had done so for years. And this is also why my 2 previous attempts to stop drinking failed spectacularly. Because it was all built on this magical thinking that I could just logic my way through it, right? Typical autistic, right? I'm going to logic my way through this. We're just going to stop. No. This is the fantasy land sort of solution that the doctor likes to use to tell others, but if they do this and it's going to stop you from doing life-threatening behaviors. No, doctor. I have just proven to you a way in which to address the issue you are raising by using logic, self-acceptance, a complete lack of magical thinking, and reasonable accommodation. I addressed the issue as to why I was drinking. It started with grief over my dad's death. I then quickly thereafter became a crutch for any time that I was stressed fucking out of my gourd. I then acknowledged if I had started to have issues with other things I won't elaborate on, that I had an addictive personality. I dealt with the reality of the situation. I did the research. I did a reasonable accommodation. Basically, I decided to switch out one addiction for another, one that was going to be a lot less life-threatening and would actually work to improve some things that come from my anxiety disorder, that comes with being autistic, and comes with having clinical depression and PTSD. No shocking or aversive therapy necessary. Okay? At all. And in case you want to know how bad of an alcoholic I was and how bad I was hallucinating due to the HH gene, my past, what made me stop drinking and do this self-realization was when in one of those hallucinations I had a blade to my roommate's throat. Okay? That finally, got me to start doing things because I knew it needed to stick this time. So, yeah, no aversive therapy necessary. Right? It's that simple, doctor. This is all it takes. So, how does this work in the real world without anything other than alcoholism, you may ask me? We start with a full functional assessment. We're not talking about JRC's bastardized version of a functional assessment. We're talking the real thing. An actual full functional assessment that also quantifies strengths as well as weaknesses. You see where I'm going with this, right? A full functional assessment just doesn't basically harangue the person on everything that is considered wrong with them. A full functional assessment takes into regards to strengths, basically everything that you would need to come up with a well-rounded treatment program. Because on the areas that you need help with that are not so great, you want to provide the reasonable accommodations, logic, what have you, to work on those, right? Exactly. And it means looking at cold, hard reality. You cannot do an actual real functional assessment if you refuse to deal with reality. I'm going to say that again, JRC. You cannot do a real, full, functional assessment if you refuse to live in reality. Period. This assessment acts as a base, if you will, that the program develops off of. To give you an example, what mine did. What did it take into account as my strengths? Very well spoken, extremely intelligent, very well read, very well versed in subjects of history, religion, very well versed into information regards to my own disability, all of that, right? I felt very strongly about the rights of people like me. These were strengths that they decided, well, it should be part of our treatment program to build on those, right? Guess what, folks? By doing that, it eventually led to me working for the state. The very same people who assessed me. Crazy, right? What a full functional assessment when done correctly can do. Where were the strengths? Where was I sort of okay but could use some boosters? Where were the areas where I was really struggling? And no, we're not just talking about behaviors, JRC. We are also discussing sensory issues that you people and fucking ABA wants to tell us to ignore and get ourselves desensitized to. It's not how any of this fucking works, Karen. Okay? What were my sensory issues in grocery stores? What were ways that I could use reasonable accommodations so that I could get strengthened in those areas, become as independent as possible, right? Right. Also, building off of the strengths as well as where my shortfalls were, what would be a good transition program? See where I'm going with this, right? This is what I'm talking about. These people want you to believe that aversive therapy is the only way. They want you to believe they've tried everything. The truth is, they haven't. Because these resources that I am talking to you about, the tools that were used in my situation, are tools and resources that many people in poor communities, particularly those poor communities where the majority of the population are people of color, they do not have access to this. Okay? Places like the JRC prey on these people because they're ripe for picking. Because these places do not have resources, offices, doctors, psychologists, all of this that these parents can have access to. Okay? It's not readily available for them. So what is available? Assessments are usually done through the schools where ABA is available. Okay? What they mean by they tried everything, what Dr. Matthew Israel is referring to, is aversive free ABA. Okay? As done through the school system. That's not trying everything. But let's move on. I've harped on that before. Let's move on here and finish this up, and we'll move on to the last video here. Any other approach would be a clear and unabashed violation of Massachusetts law and the Americans with Disabilities Act. The fuck? Doctor? It is actually not a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Your school is, though. Matter of fact, the New York Department on Special Education found numerous violations with the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Disability Bill of Rights, I might add. Let's not mention all the fucking fire hazards. You can't use this argument, doctor, when it is so easily provable, even with the strawman arguments that you put up, that there are other ways of dealing with problems other than violence. And no matter what you try to tell yourself, JRC, what you are doing to those kids is violence. You are abusers. And the fact that you try to use the ADA as a fucking argument is fucking disgusting. How the hell do you all sleep at night? Okay? So what do I want you to get from this? Other than, as usual, Dr. Matthew Israel is full of shit. If you want to have a program that works for you, you got to have a real functional assessment done. Okay? An actual one. And you got to live in reality. You got to let go of that magical thinking. Because there is no quick solution to these disabilities. There is no cure. Your child is never going to be 100% neurotypical. It's never going to happen. Please, I am not trying to destroy your hope. I want you to live in reality with me, because if you don't live in reality, you'll buy whatever the hell they're selling from you. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of us have ended up fucking dead. Okay? Literally. Okay? This is not a joke. I am not joking right now. This is fucking serious. Okay? Kids are dead because of magical thinking. Okay? Kids are dead. Dealing in reality is the best fucking thing you can do for your child. I'm not sitting there saying cry and wallow that your kid's never going to be normal, because nobody's fucking kid is normal. Get this idea out of your head of normal. There is no but the typical kid. All of us are fucked up in our own special, individualized ways. Anyone else who's trying to tell you it's different is fucking selling something. Okay? Living in reality is number one. Accepting who you are if you're an autistic, or accepting who your kid is, and loving them as who they are, not what you want them to be, is number two. Accept the reality of your situation. If you accept it, if you internalize that, then nobody's going to be able to sell you shit. Okay? A real full functional assessment. Reasonable accommodations, solutions, self-coping mechanisms. Using that as a base to choose from the thousands of programs, no matter what the JRC tries to tell you, to find the one that is going to be best suited to your child. And then as they get older and as they continue to develop and get better, making sure that the transition program you get them involved in is going to be the best one for them to be able to achieve what their idea of success is. Not your idea, but theirs. That's key. This is the answer. It's not neat and clean like what Dr. Matthew Israel's trying to sell you. It's not easy. It's not something that is going to automatically make all the problems go away. You're going to struggle for years. Your kid's going to struggle for years. But it's the right way. And overall is going to have the best results. I'm going to go ahead and close out on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this morning. And as always, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.